Hello and welcome to another standard video here in the preview event for Edge of Eternities. Today we're trying out this Terminal Velocity Tannuk Dragon combo deck. So it's quite splashy, but one of our build arounds is Tannuk, as voted on by my supporters on Patreon. A 4-mana 3/5, giving other creatures we control haste, and artifact cards as well as red creature cards in our hand can be warped for 2 in a red, meaning we can put them in play for 3 mana. They will have haste, so they can immediately attack, and then at the beginning of our end step they will be put into exile, where we can still cast them for their regular mana cost at a later point. So Tannuk wants to be cheating out some expensive dragons for 3 mana, and those include the Terror of Mount Velus, a 5/5 flying double strike. When it enters, gives our team a double strike, so then we can be attacking for essentially 16 damage, 10 in the air with the Terror, and then 6 more on the ground with Tannuk having double strike. Could also go for Drakuseth, a 7/7 flyer. When it attacks, we get to essentially split up 10 damage into chunks of 4, 3, and 3. And finally there's Urani, which when it enters can deal X damage, where X is the number of lands we control, divided as we choose among any number of creatures and or planeswalkers our opponents control. Of course, if we put this in play on turn 4 with Tannuk, it's only going to have 4 lands in play to deal damage with, but it's still a 10/10 flyer with pro black and pro white, so it can also get in for a healthy chunk of damage. So usually we need 2 Tannuk activations to cross the finish line, assuming we don't have anything else going on. And then besides Tannuk, we can also cheat out those same dragons with Terminal Velocity, a 6-mana sorcery, can put an artifact or creature from our hand onto the battlefield, gains haste, and then when it leaves the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its mana value to each creature, and at the beginning of our end step we have to sacrifice it. So we get 1 turn to attack with our dragon, and then when it dies at the end of turn, it also deals a ton of damage on the way out. So in the case of our dragons, that's either 7 or 8 damage with Urani, which is often going to be enough to just wipe the board, in addition to getting another attack for at least 10 damage in. And then we also have the Breaching Dragonstorm as kind of a backup plan in case Tannuk or Terminal Velocity don't pan out. And the Dragonstorm, of course, is very synergistic in a deck that actually has dragons in it, since we'll be able to pick it back up to spin the wheel again, hoping to hit some of our dragons or maybe a Terminal Velocity if we have those dragons in hand already. So that can also be a lot of fun. And then to help us ramp, since we want to be able to cast these 4, 5, and 6 mana spells ahead of schedule, we've got 9 total 2-drops that can help. The Iron Crag is legendary, so we don't want to overdo it. Could maybe run 2 copies, but as soon as we draw more than 1, we're going to be disappointed. And then there's the UFO, which does play well with some of the lands in our mana base, which I'll get to in a second. Can tap it to put a land from our hand onto the battlefield untapped. Also have a couple towns that can maybe pump it, but that's not going to come up very often. And then a Sarkhan also makes a lot of sense in a deck with 12 dragons, as we can reveal a dragon when it enters and then make a treasure. As we play our dragons, Sarkhan also picks up a +1 counter and gains flying until end of turn, so that's also especially powerful in combination with a Terror giving our creatures double strike. So now we could be attacking with essentially a 3-power double striking flying Sarkhan in addition to Tannuk and Terror, so that can also maybe end the game on the spot. And then the mana base, as I mentioned, is pretty interesting, since we do need enough red sources to be able to cast the double red Tannuk, so I would say at least 18 red sources to play it safe, but then we can play around with the rest of our lands, and that's where the Arid Archway makes a lot of sense if we're running the UFO, as a land that does enter tapped, so it does have some drawbacks at times, but it does allow us to pick up a land from play, so it does make it easier to keep hitting our land drops turn after turn, which is where we want to be when the UFO allows us to put an extra land from our hand onto the battlefield. And then the Archway can also pick up maybe the Adventures Inn to gain 2 life once again, or we can go for the Conduit Pylons, which lets us surveil 1 when it enters, and then if we pick up a Desert with Archway, we get to surveil 1 once again. So these 2 also have inherent synergy, so we could maybe go for 4 Pylons and 1 Adventures Inn, but against aggro it can be nice to gain a bit of life back since we're not doing much in the early turns. And then we also have the various Verge lands, which luckily start out by making red mana, so there's no huge drawback playing these over just a basic mountain, unless you're on a budget, in which case I would just play the mountains. But the Verge lands in the late game can maybe allow us to cast Urani, so that's the upside there, especially in conjunction with a bit of extra mana acceleration or the treasures from Sarkhan. We might be able to get to 8 mana. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the play. We do not have a great hand, missing the ramp to go with Terminal Velocity. Alright, this is a slight improvement. Keep Archway with Adventures in to gain some life. Could also keep an extra lands, but Velocity with Dracoseth could be useful. More likely to draw another red source. Found Sarkhan. Still gonna Archway, I think. But then next turn Sarkhan can set up Dragonstorm on the following turn. Opponent with a mage, so might be kind of a flicker warp deck that can draw a ton of cards. I'll reveal the Terror, since that's maybe less information than Dracoseth. Could also decide to keep the treasure, in case Dragonstorm doesn't hit anything exciting, to set up the terminal velocity first. Kinda depends if we draw more mana sources. Is it gonna be a Technician, a Warped? Can provide card advantage. Triggers a mage. So that drew a bunch of cards. Alright, let's try the Dragonstorm, I guess. Hope to hit a dragon. Well, that's not a dragon, but at least it still helps with eventually getting to the 6 or 7 mana to play our Curve Toppers. Although actually light on red mana at the moment. So now opponent found a Timeline Color, another Warp card. Found the red source. So I could Terminal Velocity right now, put in a Dragon Smash, and then potentially be in a spot to Dragonstorm next turn to keep it going. Yeah, why not? And then Terror versus Dracoseth, I guess I go for Terror. So we also give Sarkhan Double Strike, it'll fly. So that's a healthy attack for 16 damage. And then we get to wipe the board. So now we just need to deal 2 more. And there's another mage. And a Terror. So we get to spin the wheel with a Dragonstorm. Hit a UFO. Archway pickup in. And then next turn I can try casting a Terror or a Dracoseth. Opponents maybe keeping up removal here in case we go for another Terminal Velocity. So if they have nothing, this could be lethal, but I suspect there is some interaction in hand. The Adventures in does let the UFO attack for 1 potentially. But yeah, let's just cast a Terror. Or do we go for Dracoseth first? Maybe Dracoseth first. Yeah, the 1 town is actually relevant. Maybe a reason not to pick up the inn last turn. Yeah, if I cast Dracoseth, I can also... I guess never mind, I don't have triple red, so Dracoseth is not even an option. Alright, so Terror it is. Otherwise we also could have considered transforming the Iron Crag. So we can suit up the UFO. But yeah, that's not an option here. So it has double strike, but won't be able to pump its power. So just have to pass it back, and then our opponent had an archenemy Charm to exile the Terror. Fair enough. So if they tap out, we still have Terminal Velocity put in Dracoseth. And if they keep up removal, we can maybe Dragonstorm for value. Top decking a second Adventures in could be decent. Alright, opponent's got a Riddler. I'm sure they'll be able to flicker it here to keep it in play. But yeah, Dracoseth can still win the game through a flying blocker. And a Trajectory actually takes care of the UFO. It's a sorcery, so I'm going to use it while you can. And the opponent's likely still keeping up. an archenemy charm, although it will cost him 1 life with the starting town. So I think we play it slow, keep making them hold up 3 mana for removal, while we maybe develop our board with a Dragonstorm. And now Tannuk could let me warp Drakuseth. Let's maybe transform Ironcrag as well. And then, yeah, if I warp Drakuseth, they can remove Tannuk so Drakuseth doesn't have haste. But then we still pick up the Dragonstorm. If they deal with Drakuseth itself, that's maybe still fine. Yeah, sure. We'll eventually find something else to terminal velocity with. And this way our opponent falls to 1. And they will deal with Drakuseth as opposed to Tannuk. So now we have that equipment that could also maybe come into play. So starting town essentially doesn't make colored mana anymore. Goes for the Riddler. Draw a card. And the UFO, with haste and an Everflame, can go up to 3 power, maybe 4 power if we activate it. So it still doesn't get past the Riddler. So if I suit up Tannuk, that's 3 mana. So then I can still Dragonstorm alongside it. Hit a terminal velocity. Alright, I guess we'll decline. And then just suit up Tannuk and attack. A Riddler chumps. Pick it up with a Mage. Now our opponent knows about terminal velocity. Warp the Riddler. Opponent's got 1,000,000 cards in hand. And now a Hellkite. And gets in for 4. And our opponent might have another charm in hand for removal. And draw a 3rd terminal velocity, that's awkward. Alright, so I play UFO, can move Everflame onto the UFO, they likely still take care of Tannuk. Is there any advantage into warping the UFO? Not really. So we'll just cast it. Move Everflame. Attack. Alright, so that'll do it. They ran out of removal. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a promising hand. Got Sarkhan setting up a turn 3 Tannuk, perhaps. And then Urani can be warped. Could also start with Ironcrag, but then we maybe miss out on a couple attacks with Sarkhan. Well, let's see what we're up against. On black-white and a Gas Guzzler, so maybe more of a sacrifice deck. Yeah, I'll go for Sarkhan, revealing Drakuseth versus Urani. Let's go with Drakuseth. Sir Von Dam is next. Opponent offers a trade. I should probably still take it for now. They'll get to increase their speed. Alright. Now I can maybe offer the trade Sarkhan and Sir Von Dam, and then play Tannuk. I'm okay taking 2 on the way back. Alright, let's hope they don't have removal. Some of these sacrifice builds are mostly creatures and erase the past, so it's possible they don't have a ton of interaction. Of course, Serve on Dam eventually can take something out, but it does require a bit of setup. So they know about Drakuseth, they don't know about Urani, and Zahur is next. So Zahur can activate in my turn as well. So if they sack the Guzzler, Serve on Dam grows. But now, especially with drawing another Drakuseth, it makes sense to warp Drakuseth as opposed to Urani, since we would only deal 4 damage, which is not enough to take out both Serve on Dam and Zahur. Hesitant to take out all 3 creatures, because then Erase the Past can just bring them back. I'll decline to transform. Smash. So I can deal 4 to my opponent. 3 to Zahur, 3 to Serve on Dam should be fine, either way. So Zahur can sack Serve on Dam. But yeah, here it doesn't really matter. Could matter if Serve on Dam would grow out of range by taking out some creatures. Opponent did indeed have Erase the Past. But yeah, we can just warp another Drakuseth, and that should do it. Alright, sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand is missing a dragon, but yeah, if we get there, this could be pretty strong. Quite a few outs for now. Edge Rover out of a multicolor mana base. So a red-green, maybe Junt artifacts. Okay, for now, maybe hang on to the Archway still. Do I play Sarkhan? It can block and trade, maybe make a lander token, which gives me something to do next turn. Extruder takes out Sarkhan, so that didn't accomplish much. Got a backup Tannuk, so we can play the Archway if we'd like. We'll still have double red next turn. This might be worse in case we put Urani in play with a Dragonstorm, because then I have fewer lands. Take 3. And demand answers will sacrifice to draw. Revealing the manufacturing and the candy trail. Let's see if they can answer Tannuk. Still need to find something to warp into play with the ability. But even just going Tannuk into Dragonstorm, if we then hit a dragon, all of a sudden it'll have haste. And we found Drakuseth. So yeah, if Tannuk survives, we can deal quite a bit of damage. There's a manufacturing. So now artifacts make a munitions token. And Torch the Tower can deal 5 total with the munitions. Yeah, that's a nice answer. So now do we Dragonstorm or do we run back Tannuk is the question. And Dragonstorm might have the highest upside if we get lucky. Next turn I'll have 6 mana, maybe 7 if we hit a ramp spell, so then I could still maybe Tannuk activate. If I hit something big, we'll have a blocker. So I think Dragonstorm is worth it. Hit Sarkhan, so not the best, but that does give us the mana to Tannuk, warp out Drakuseth next turn. And then we'll be able to pick up the Dragonstorm, so if the game drags out, we at least still have a reasonable play available. But yeah, we could be dead here. The manufacturing is pretty scary. A nutrient block can sacrifice to gain 3 and draw a card. Another demand answers, takes out Sarkon. And a Candy Trail makes another munitions. So we're taking at least 3. And a Terror. So Terror can deal 10. Probably better off clearing the opponent's board with Tannuk into Dracoseth. And then maybe play the Verge in case Urani shows up. Pick up Dragonstorm. Smash. 4, 3, 3. Opponent finds a land with a Percussionist. Let's see if we're dead. They have a munitions already, and now Specialists makes another token, and yeah, Zealots especially will do it. Alright, GG's. So they can drain us to death here with a Specialist's ability. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. This hand is missing a dragon, sadly. Would have been pretty good with a dragon in hand. Otherwise, it's just turn 5 Dragonstorm, which is not that exciting. So I'll take a mulligan. This is better. Ironcrag into Tannuk. But then I have to decide, do I keep Terror or do I keep Dragonstorm? I mean, Terror makes sense with Tannuk, but then we might be lacking an extra finisher. So maybe wait a turn on the pylons. Because if I draw land, I know I don't need to prioritize another one. And a Terror is good, assuming Tannuk survives. So we can warp Terror 2 turns in a row. Opponent's on a white artifact deck, so hopefully they don't have any removal. But they could have like a snare, which exiles Tannuk. It's gonna be Chaplain, that's fine, and an Inspector. Okay, so we get to do our thing. A warping Terror. And then I think Tannuk can attack as well. Or do we? So this says if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, they get a counter. And then if they remove a +1 counter, they can tap down maybe Terror going forward. So I think we just hit for 10. Would still be lethal next turn with another Terror. Want to make it harder for them to tap our stuff down. Now the Pack Beast. That's fine. And a Warden, so that can tap their stuff down. Glidecar as well. But yeah, they didn't have enough mana to activate the Chaplain's ability. They don't seem to keep any flyers on defense. So yeah, another Tannuk for Terror should do it. Unless I'm missing something. Opponent keeps activating the Warden, which eventually can fly. And the Dragoon's Lance only gives flying in their turn. Okay, so could warp twice now. I guess starting with Urani, which deals 5 damage. Would be enough to take out the Warden. And then warp Terror afterwards, and that should be more than enough. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a hand that's lacking Tannuk, Dragonstorm, or Terminal Velocity. Do have Sarkon and then the UFO with Archway, so we're not too far from just ramping out our 7 mana dragons. So maybe this is good enough. So then if we just draw a couple more lands, we can hardcast our dragons. But of course we wouldn't mind top decking something like Tannuk. Opponent blue-white. Now Pylons is a better one to pick up with Archway. And the Verge. It's not an exciting land, but lands in general are good for the UFO. So I'll start here. Put the UFO to work. And our opponent's got a Riddler, so maybe a blue-white Warp Flicker deck. Okay, so I get to play Sarkon, reveal a dragon. We'll maybe hide Drakuseth for now. Archway, pick up Pylons. See what's on top, Terminal Velocity. That gives us kind of a backup plan, besides hardcasting our dragons. Could be okay, although right now we're the ones that are ahead on board. I think I still keep it. And then the UFO doesn't need to put in the Pylon since we know the top card already. So can go for something else. So yeah, next turn I could already cast the dragon. Bonus keeping up 3 mana. Let's surveil again. Another land on top. So that's potentially still useful if we want to cast another dragon back-to-back. But for now, let's decline. Activate UFO. And then I guess we try and cast the Terror. Wait on Drakuseth. Although it is into 3 open mana, so it doesn't feel great. But yeah, I'll still go for it. That resolves. Sarkon hits for 6 essentially. Okay. Is there a Wrath? I'm just a Vocalist into Charming Prince. So that triggers twice. Vocalist is back. But yeah, we should have lethal now with Velocity, putting in Drakuseth. Opponent's at 17, but we're attacking for 10 plus another 4. And Drakuseth is basically 11 damage if we go face with a 4 damage. So yeah, that should be more than enough. Could have finished off the Vocalist. Alright, sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. A hand that's missing a bit of early acceleration. But yeah, it's got potential. Can Pylons on 1, pick it up with Archway to surveil again. But then I do need to make sure to put my red sources into play for Tannuk. So we do need to find those first. Lanor Elves. So play Archway. Pick up a Desert, letting me surveil. UFO doesn't do much for me here. Can play it next turn, but yeah, may as well just find a land. It's gonna be a Scrap Shooter 4/4 reach. Did find the red source. Okay, so play my Verge. Next turn I can play Tannuk, hope it survives. If not, we still have Dragonstorm as a follow-up. Now a Recruit. So this could be a mono-green Stompy deck with a new 2-mana Baloth. Elves keeping up a protection spell for Scrap Shooter, perhaps. Alright, play Tannuk. Hope it doesn't get taken out somehow. And then I can put in Drakuseth, although it is currently the only big finisher, so without Drakuseth, Terminal Velocity doesn't look nearly as good. Looks like there might be a fight incoming. Primal Might, yeah. That's a good one, has been reprinted. So, taking a lot of damage here. The elves still keeping up protection for Scrap Shooter, it seems. So then I pretty much need to Dragonstorm and hit Terminal Velocity, and there's only 2 left in the deck. Or maybe a big dragon can save me. Tannuk is not going to be good enough, I don't think. Can block Scrap Shooter. Still taking at least 4, so any pump spell is lethal. And we suspect they have another one in hand. So Tannuk's not going to be good enough. So let's spin the wheel. Alright, a terror. So return Dragonstorm, have a 5/5 double strike in play. Don't know if that's going to be good enough. But next turn with Terminal Velocity we would have lethal with Drakuseth and Terror attacking. Unless they keep Scrap Shooter back and can give it indestructible. Could just see another Primal Might. And that seems to be incoming. Can be a synchronized charge instead. So yeah, that's still lethal. Can block Scrap Shooter, take 6. Alright, GG's. I'll do the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a reasonable hand. A bit all in on Tannuk surviving, but eventually at 6, Terminal Velocity can also clean up and deal a good chunk of damage. Missing some early ramp. Opponent with Percussionists, so might be more of a sacrifice deck. Okay. Could have been reasonable to play the inn in case we pick up the Archway, so we can eventually gain 2 once again. So yeah, for opponents playing black, they're more likely to be able to answer Tannuk. For now, a Melded Moxite. Essentially just a discard and draw effect. Can eventually make a token. I'll play the inn. Turn 4 Tannuk. Turn 5 try to activate. Another Percussionist. So not under too much pressure so far. And a Tough Cookie, so there's a Junt deck. Alright, play Tannuk. Do we get to untap with it? If so, Drakuseth can clean house. Both Percussionists attack. So they could have double Legion Extruder in hand, I guess, a reason not to block. Or they might just be hoping to find something more exciting to answer Tannuk. I'll take 2. Can't risk losing Tannuk. And a Specialist is next. So payoff for sacrificing artifacts. It's immediately gonna sack the lander to essentially rampant growth. Alright, but now the coast is clear to warp. Can't quite warp both creatures, but we'll start with Drakuseth. And then I can Archway pick up the Adventures Inn, like we mentioned. Smash. 4 face. 3 and 3. Opponent takes 10. So now Terminal Velocity putting in a Terror should seal the deal, and our opponent explodes. I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a reasonable hand. Turn 2 Sarkhan, turn 3 can already play Tannuk, and then maybe turn 4 warp the Terror, which would also pump up Sarkhan. Opponent's blue-white. Gotta reveal the Terror. So we should resolve Tannuk. And they know about the Terror, so we'll see if they have an answer. Ideally just draw more lands at this point. Opponent taps out for Fortune. So I get to do my thing. I'm warping a Terror. And smash. Opponent is already forced to chump block, otherwise they die. So they're now at 2. Still facing Tannuk and Sarkhan. So they need a board wipe. And their opponent doesn't have it and concedes. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand seems reasonable. Planning to ramp out a terminal velocity to try and stabilize and deal a chunk of damage. Opponent does have a turn 1 Elves. Turn 2 Warden is pretty scary. Alright, so this turn maybe go for UFO instead of Sarkhan. So next turn we can activate it. Pretty good with Archway, picking up the inn once again. And yeah, there's Boroid pumping the team, so Warden already a 5/5. Yeah, the curve of Warden into Boroid is perfect, and powered up by Eleanor Elves, so it doesn't get any better. I can play Sarkhan, reveal Terror, Archway pick up inn, and then I can jump with the UFO, still putting in the inn if needed. So let's see, next turn, 3, 4, 5, 6, I can terminal velocity. Question is that going to be good enough? Scrap Shooter could destroy my treasure now too. Goes for UFO. Put in the inn. And draw a card off the gift. Opponent goes wide with the Spirit. And the Might. Okay. Well, we can wipe the board, but I don't think we can wipe the board dealing 10 to everything. Can only deal 7, sadly, with terminal velocity. So it's a little bit short. Now Drakuseth gets closer, but yeah, it's still a little bit short. Opponent just had too explosive a start. So I can put in Drakuseth, attack. It's gonna deal 7 to everything on the way out. So 4 here, 3 here, and 3 to a token. Opponent blocks with Scrap Shooter. So now Scrap Shooter also dies, but they're still left with an 8/8 Spirit. So they made a bit of a mistake by blocking, but yeah, it didn't matter. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. This hand's not good enough. This one I could try. And then probably ditch the UFO, since we only have 2 lands in hand. So I still need another red source. There we go. So we can play turn 3 Tannuk against mono reds. It's not going to be the easiest to remove. In the meantime, Tersa discarding a couple mountains. So this could be some sort of reanimator deck. Does Tannuk survive, or does it eat some burn spells? Count on luck. Maybe a red devotion deck. Okay, so we can Warp Terror, attack, Archway, pick up Adventures in. Opponent takes 16. And then we're close to just terminal velocity for the win as well, in case something bad happens to Tannuk. Count on Luck finds Pain for all, alright. So there might be a combo here. And Dawnsire is gonna take a while to station. Alright, so can just put in another Terror. Alright, so we got to see our terminal velocity Tannuk dragons in action. And yeah, it's a deck with some very explosive potential, but it often does rely on Tannuk surviving. So if your opponent comes prepared with some answers, then the game plan starts falling apart. Still have a few backup plans, of course, with terminal velocity and the Dragonstorm. You could always get lucky, but Tannuk is really the card that allows you to set up these very quick kills, and without it, the deck feels a lot less exciting. So I don't think this is going to be a very competitive choice, but definitely a fun time if you want to cheat out some expensive dragons. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.